Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Another week in bodybuilding. We're going to be short Chase today. He's got his new baby. Family's visiting and seeing the new baby. We all know how Todd is. He's probably peeling the tinfoil off the windows right now, so he'll be here at some point.
He's just getting to sleep, right?
I think Todd works out at like 2 a.m. I'm not joking either.
You know what? I'd love to be able to do that. I think about that all the time because, you know, when you like got a deadline or something and you got graphics or I don't know, just a bunch of stuff to do and you end up working like late at night, you don't realize what time it is. Mm-hmm. I'm so productive. You know, it's so quiet. There's nothing going on here. Get so much done. But with the family, I still got to get up in the morning.
I feel like when I'm at the gym, I'm doing a live Q&A anymore.
Yeah.
It's everybody's fucking stopping me.
Man, I don't miss that. You gotta get the home gym. I mean, the home gym's hard to get motivated.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just you down there, and then there's always a kid coming down. But it's so nice having just complete autonomy and freedom.
I have a home gym, but I don't know. It's all barbells and dumbbell stuff, but
it's not the same. It's just there's good and bad. Like you could do like what Todd does. If I could train in a gym at 2 a.m. by myself, absolutely. But training when everyone knows you're a coach and everyone has a question, it's like, you remember the Higgs boson, the God particle?
Yeah.
That's actually the way they described it. What the mathematics basically describes is that there's some force out there that decides certain things are important. So it'd be like if Phil Heath walked into a room full of bodybuilders, it would take him forever to get to the other side of the room because everyone would try to stop him, you know. But if like, I don't know, my cousin Bob, who's never worked out in a day in his life, having walked through the room, he'd be able to go through as fast as he wants. And that's what the Higgs boson gives mass by doing that. It chooses certain particles that it talks to, basically.
That's a really good analogy.
I blame Colin. He's the one that told me to start the YouTube channel so people would ask me less questions. I could just point them to the YouTube channel. My God, it's every night, isn't it, Colin?
Yeah. You bring a little bit of it on yourself too, and I know you enjoy it a little bit.
I do like talking. I mean, I like talking, but sometimes it's just like the workouts that should take an hour and 15 minutes take 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's hard too. It's hard to decide, you know, because this is your career, you know, like explaining this stuff, people pay you for it, you know, and you have valuable knowledge, and but you don't want to be a dick to people and not talk to anyone. It's hard to decide like how much is too much, because people will, you know, like an Instagram DM thread will quickly turn into a full coaching package for free.
Yeah. I have cut the Instagram question and answer off. I don't do that anymore, man.
Yeah, I have to.
Although Instagram, they have a function now where you can charge people to ask questions.
Yeah, I saw that.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth it or not. I would get too distracted. There's a lot going on.
Charged by the hour. I just talk real slow.
I know you don't do console calls or any of that stuff, do you?
I just added them again. I don't like it because I think I'm in a disagreement with everyone else on earth. I think they're just so inefficient because we do a 30-minute call. The first 5 minutes are, hey, how you doing? And then you finally get to it, and then the time's up, and you're like mid answering a question, and you answer it, and then as soon as you log off the phone, 3 minutes later, there's an email oh, hey, bro, what did you say about the yada, you know? So I'm like, man, if there's just a written record, then it's just there.
Yeah, I mean, I
I think
prefer
you're right.
text communications, but that's me.
Do you prefer text or do you prefer?
Yeah, message over Telegram.
Yeah,
but
for sure, yeah.
it's funny because I priced the consultation calls high enough where I thought it would discourage people from booking, and they still book them.
Mine's the same as a month. People will book it. I'll say you can get a month of coaching for that. Oh no, I just talk. I just got it. You know, it's all right. That's fine. We can talk once or for the same price as an entire month of full coaching. But
yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is for me. Like I charge the same for a whole month of coaching. But I mean, if people want to pay it, that's fine. I don't mind getting on the phone talking. I can talk. I did 5 calls yesterday.
Oh yeah. Oh man. See, I can't. Yeah, I say that as I get on here and I don't shut up, but I'm just not. I don't like talking on the phone.
It's a different type of talking.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable talking to you guys than I am. Like, it feels like you have to be turned on. You know.
Yeah, it's not. It feels like you're playing
formative.
I'm not. You know, me. I'm Justin Harris, the coach. It's like I'm acting or it's like I'm playing some kind of role.
Yes, it feels performative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan and Nick, do you guys do consult calls or?
Yeah,
I do. Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of them. Like you said, I think coaching's more efficient though. I do have them available on my website though. Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer to do that. Have you guys been paying attention to the stuff with the Arnold? I mean, we're going to be there in a few weeks, but Andrew Jack dropped out.
Oh yeah.
I heard about that. Something about not being able to bring his best or something, or
yeah, I mean the rumor was that he was having some health issues. I don't know if that's true or not. And then
It's pretty much always. I mean, there's 2 reasons people drop out. But they don't got it. That you know sometimes you just don't have the diet in you. You're just not mentally there. It's either that or health issues. I mean, no one quits because they needed to redecorate their bedroom or something, you know.
Me personally, I always have the diet in me. I would never, for example, like go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
I just stay on the diet all the time.
I interviewed Jean Pierre. I don't know if you remember Jean Pierre Fuchs.
Yeah, I did one with him too.
Yeah, I interviewed him, and he was telling me like he knew like towards the end, he said he was like going to the buffet once a week.
The last show he did after after he tore his knees, Weeder kept him on contract, and they were like really bugging him, you know, like, hey, you got to do something. And he said his heart just wasn't in it, so yeah, you're going to breakfast buffets. But then I remember that show, and I remember him not being 100%, but he didn't look terrible.
No.
It was like reminder number 17,000 about genetics because I can tell you right now, once a week, he told me as much as every day, but if I went to a breakfast buffet once a week in a contest prep, you would know it when I stepped on stage. I'd be leaking moisture and sweat. And
I try not to abuse it, but I seem to be able to get away with eating
you have good metabolism.
Off schedule. I mean, I'm only up 13 pounds from my stage weight, and I've eaten like a complete. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've eaten like a complete asshole over the last month.
That's insane. I just did a day in the life because I kind of want people to actually see. I don't think people believe me how shitty my metabolism is. I eat generally like I'm not in it. You know, I'm not obsessed enough right now to do the whole carb cycling and stuff I do. I just basically eat. I still eat good, but my meals are 50 grams protein, 50 grams carbs, no added fat, and I eat about 4 a day, and I hold like 275 that way. Just,
I mean, that's a blessing and a curse, right? It makes it easier to gain weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Getting big. I used to like. I remember when the forums were new, and people would say, you know, you can't get big on chicken and rice, and I'd be thinking like, I'm 280 and I'm eating chicken and rice, and I want to eat more. Yeah, I can get fat on it. I'm not just big.
I know last off season, Justin, I hit my fucking limit, man. I just could not eat any more than what you had me eating, man. I was struggling getting it down, and I couldn't break like 272, 273 was about as big as I got.
That's the curse of the bad metabolism. It's great come prep time, but yeah, when you're some of the diets I sign, and I love eating. The some of the diets I say, and you're one of them. I'm like, God damn, that's especially clean food. It's a lot of dry food, and I notice more as I get older. I think when I was in my 20s, I don't know if I produced more saliva or what, but now I look at that dry ass chicken breast, and it's like I get my mouth, and I'm like, it's psyching myself out. I'm gonna produce enough saliva to get this down.
I used to trim. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, I have to eat ground chicken breast. I can't do like straight chicken breast anymore because, like you said, it's just dry. Like, so hard to get the calories in.
Yeah. I went to chicken tenderloins for a long time. I could keep those pretty because they're so much thinner, you know. And I cut them in. Yeah. But ground chicken. I'm seeing a lot more and more of my clients are really raving about that. I never really got into it, but I got to give it a try.
It's so fucking expensive.
Oh, just buy a meat grinder yourself and just buy the chicken breast, cut it in cubes, and that's what I would do if I was back in Australia. But in Thailand, I don't want to buy a grinder because I'm gonna have to throw it out in 6 months anyway. But Nick, I know Roman does that. He's a fan of it.
You're severely underestimating how lazy I am. I do the bare minimum when it comes to food prep. People all the time give me shit. They're like, "Don't you season your food?" And I'm like, "I don't have time for that."
Oh man, yeah. Well, I've been my daughter's been trying to make extra money, you know. So I was like, I got perfect, cook my meals for me. I'll pay, a stupid amount of money just to save the time, more than they'll make anywhere else. And that's the first thing I ask. What kind of seasoning do you like? I'm like, salt. I mean, I don't know. I just open the cupboard and grab a salt and pour it on there. I'm terrible with that stuff. The worst is when we went to a really nice restaurant for my buddy Brad. If anyone remembers Muscle Mentor years ago, his 40th. I don't know. It was in Indiana in Fort Wayne, but great restaurant. The food was amazing, but they did all that pairing, and they tell you why something's paired with something else. And like when someone else does it, I can taste it all, and it's like, wow, I know why this was paired together. This is amazing, but I can never do that on my own in a million years.
There's a tight book if you are interested in flavor pairings called the Flavor Bible. That was gifted to me by a chef, and it's all cross-referenced and everything. It's exactly what you're talking about. Like you look up chicken, and it'll give you 50 things that work well with chicken.
We went to a place around here, and they suggested a pairing of Japanese whiskey, like Nikon or something, which is one I don't like. I don't like at all, with their seared scallops, which. I don't know anything about anything, but I would always imagine a whiskey being paired with something like a red meat or something. But I tell you what, it was the scallops were good on their own period. The whiskey was terrible on its own period, but combined, it was like the greatest thing I ever ate in my life.
I love it when that sort of stuff happens. Like that's the joy of cooking and eating for me. Like
I think
like alchemy.
She was like mesmerized. She's like you look like when those videos when. Someone who's never been able to hear and they finally turn the hearing on for the first time or something. So like every bite, your eyes light up like it's the first time you tasted food.
Brian's got a story. He said, I remember doing DC training and following Dante's advice to a T and getting 500 grams of protein from chicken breast only. I lasted a month. Brian, I'll tell you a funny story. Dante trained me personally, and what he would tell me to do on my diet, my post-workout meal was 3 double cheeseburgers and a large milkshake from McDonald's and a dump a scoop of protein powder in it.
Oh my god! Yeah, I used to do a lot of stuff like that. I used to say, anytime you want to eat anything, have a 40-gram protein shake first, real quick, and then start eating before the protein shake, I guess, got sensed by your body.
Oh god, he used to do the protein shakes in olive oil. I can't do that shit anymore, man.
Oh man,
that was a recipe for diarrhea.
It's like a lubricant for your butthole. It's lube for shoot.
I was training this girl one time for a show, and one of the competitors there had such great genetics. She had such a high metabolism that she had to, in order to put on muscle mass and keep weight, she ate Whoppers from Burger King. She ate one the morning of the show. She ate them all the way up every day, all the way up to the morning of the show, and she had to, she was incredibly lean. Awesome. I couldn't believe what she was.
Sounds like Roman.
Oh yeah, Roman diets. We message fairly often on Instagram. It just blows my mind. how he even gets that stuff down, but to stay that lean, and he's not even, you know, like you can imagine a guy like maybe Marcus Rule or Nasser or Ronnie, you know, like, you know, okay, they're carrying, you know, 340 pounds in the off season. And it's not like, you know, Roman's small, he's a big dude, but he's not, you know, he's not 340 pounds. It's remarkable.
Yeah. You know the thing that blows me away though, like, because I think he said in the past that he was actually a little bit chubby when he was a kid at one point. So it's not like he's genetically predisposed to being super lean. It must have been a case if he like over dieted to a point once when he was younger in his earlier competitive years, and then he just stayed so lean for so long that his body kind of reset his body fat set point at such a low level. And now, like, because he's had such a low level of adiposity for so long, whenever he tries to overfeed, his body's just so efficient at utilizing that food. It must just like adapt, like adaptive thermogenesis, like on steroids. Like,
yeah, I don't like to talk about things that I don't have like a scientific understanding where I can say it. You know, I hate saying this is what I just think, but I've seen things like that repeatedly. Steve Kuklo was an example. He could never get striated glutes, no matter what. You know, and I think he did like 4 or 5 pro qualifiers, top 5 at all of them, but his glutes were always soft. And finally, I think he worked with Art Atwood, and Art was convinced, because by then Steve was competing, you know, in around 260. You know, Steve's a big dude, he's tall, big frame, and Art, because Art turned pro at 245, was convinced Steve needed to be 245 to turn pro. So he dieted him all the way down to 245. It was his worst placing. He was 15th, worst he'd ever done, but he finally had striated glutes. And it's almost like, you know, because you have those fat stores, and he probably had those there since he was born. You know, and you don't lose the fat; they just shrink. But those fat cells have never shrunk since he was a child. I mean, it's like they finally did shrink from that over dieting phase, and from then on, it was never an issue. His glutes came in right in line with everything else. You know.
yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, after that first prep I did with you, Justin, where I over dieted, it's been way easier to get lean since then.
Yeah, you meant that was a lot. That was weird because it happened so fast. It was like worried we weren't going to be in shape, and then it's like from one check-in to the next. It's like all of a sudden, hey, coach, I'm losing 5 pounds a day.
That's exactly how my prep went last prep. Yeah, yeah. It's scary, hey? Like the metabolism can just run away on you in the end, hey?
Yeah, run away. The really weird thing though is it's like. The hard thing with this sport is you don't want, you know, you focus on right now. I want to look the best now, and obviously when you're prepping for a show, you want to look the best at that show. But the weird thing is a lot of times the best thing you can do long term is the wrong thing short term. Like in Paul's case, that over dieting allowed, you know, his appetite was so high, his insulin sensitivity was so sky high, and his body was just so primed to soak up nutrients. And I remember emailing him because I felt terrible. Oh, you know, because I knew we over-dieted him, you know, and I knew I didn't correct with bringing calories up soon enough. And I think I kind of said, you know, like, hey, you know, show's over. It's up to you what you do, but I'd really, you know, I'd love a second chance at it because I knew what was going to happen. And, you know, sometimes it's almost worth it to, you know, go a little too far and over-diet. I mean, it sucks ass, one, because over-dieting isn't comfortable, and two, your placing sucks. But then, you know, the next off season is almost always your biggest off season.
Yeah, I went from 185 on stage, and a year and 8 months later, or a year, not even 8 months, a year and 2.5 years. It was 2.5 years later. I was 239 this year.
Yeah,
That's
I weighed in at 239.
crazy.
Yeah, so I mean it worked, but I like now I have a hard time gaining weight.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
I remember. Well, they say metabolism isn't very malleable, you know. And I read studies on it, and it's like I feel like they're missing something in the research, and a lot of it is
Yeah.
you know, there's variability in how much of the bacteria in your stomach break down calories, and typically and this is how much, like, we think we understand the body, but sometimes I'll realize how little we actually understand it. When I'll read study after study after study saying that bacterial breakdown is like 3%, you know, 3% of calories at most, 1, 2, 3. And you think, okay, that's some variability. Like if my bacteria only breaks down 1 and Paul's breakdown is 3, you know, a couple of percent higher metabolism when you're eating 4,000 calories a day is a decent chunk. But then I saw one study where they said that there was as much as only 67% of the calories were absorbed, 33% were broken down by gut bacteria. And I was like, no, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, did anyone, you
Yeah.
know, and that's the only study I saw on it, and I tried to verify it anywhere else. I'm like, did anyone put any extra thought in it? It's a third of your calories are not getting absorbed in this person. Can we figure out why and invent a diet drug based around that?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, the missing ingredient from the studies is tren and 18 units of Therastone.
Yeah, any food study, unless you lock those people in a room, if you got people self-reporting, good luck getting real data. You know, with it,
100%.
public, you know.
Well, we all have been playing around with the higher dose HGH, and like when I push up, like I just started this week, man, and Kirk can attest to this, but when I push up to like over 10 units, it's like I can't get fat.
Yeah,
I don't understand it, man. Like it makes no sense.
it makes a
Yeah, we
little
were-
sense when you consider double digit. I use a GH, but no, yeah. Well, but even that though, even the GH studies don't like show. Yeah, but even the GH studies, it cracks me up because it's like the old steroid studies that said they didn't build muscle, you know. And the GH studies basically say the same thing, that they, you know, that it's a poor anabolic. It's basically a very expensive, crappy, mild fat burner. And I'm like, have you tried it? Because I would disagree from personal experience, but
Yeah.
I'm only, let's see, 5 days back into running a full bottle a day, and my weight jumped up about 5 pounds immediately. It already looked different in the mirror.
yeah. Oh, nothing. And as far as, you know, nothing will change you. You look quicker right out of the gate than a big bump in GH, especially if you're lean. Have you ever had someone on a diet who like came in, who, you know, like, you know, people are with prep, they'll start getting crazy and they'll take out loans and stuff to buy GH. We've never had someone who's
Open up credit cards.
Yeah. Someone who's already in shape and they come across like a good source or something, and they're like, "Hey, coach, I'm 6 weeks out. I came across this great source. You know, I've been taking 2, 3, 4 IUs a day. I think I can bump it up to 12 the rest of the way. So go ahead, try it. If that's on a Monday, they'll check in on a Friday as a different person. It's you know, like the fullness change, and it's just a different look to the physique. I think GH is the best and worst part of bodybuilding right now, because I think all those benefits are amazing, but the other problem is it's so affordable now that you're getting really high dose long-term use, and you're getting the acromegalic side effects, I think, now, where guys are, because guys talk about conditioning from the 90s, but I think body fat on stage is lower than it ever was then. I've been prepping guys since then. Like the body fat I have to get guys now is so much lower than it was back then, but I think guys' skin is so much thicker from years of higher GH use that it doesn't show as well. There's something different about it. So it's like at some point we're going to find that perfect sweet spot, I think, where when's the right time to push it, when's the right time to back off on the dose, and kind of combine that the guy, because guys are enormous right now. People talk about the 90s like there was some glory phase, but Dorian was 260, 265 on stage and a mass monster. You got there's half a dozen guys at the nationals at over 260, and not terribly out of shape, and so and guys, I mean, Kuklo's a perfect example. Kuklo's been 290 on stage, Back then, Nasser was, I remember Nasser claiming 285 one time, and no one would believe it because everyone thought there's no way any human could be 285 in shape. When now at the Olympia, half the guys are bigger than that. So there's, obvious benefits to it, but hopefully we find the right sweet spot.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was at Masters USA's, the 35 to 40 class, which really isn't Masters. There were like 8 guys out there that were over 250.
Yeah.
8 or 9 guys. I mean, there was some massive dudes up there. Like, I don't know how they picked a winner. It was wild, man.
You're
These big dudes.
one. Yeah. See, the thing with judging, I think, is it's hard. I mean, it's hard if you've ever sat in and judged, or if you because you have to go through that process of like training to be a judge or whatever. What I find is what's not usually super hard is the winner. And I think it's easy to lose focus as a judge on whether or not you nail the 5th and 6th place correctly, you know? And so I think kind of what ends up happening is in most cases, they get the winner correct. I mean, when I say most, obviously not every time, but it's more than 50%. I think, you know, it's not like every show, the majority of the public thinks the winner had no business winning. But as a competitor, you put your heart and soul into it, and you know you should have been 3rd, and you get 6th place because they kind of like, after they knew who the winner was, you feel like they, you know, maybe lose their focus a little bit as far as judging. I think that's, I don't even know where I'm going with that, but I think that's kind of a hard thing to deal with because, you know, the winner's all that anyone that's not on stage cares about. But when you're that competitor and you knew you deserved 3rd and you get a 5th place, or worse, you don't get in the top 5 and you're not even invited to the night show, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it was interesting when I was at, and I did not know this, I guess because I'm an idiot, but when I was at Masters USA, that they don't give placings for the finals. It's just a winner and that's it.
It's very strange.
Wild, yeah.
I guess that's to eliminate all that issue that you were talking about.
That would be smart because that, at the end of the day, that's their job, is to get the winner correct, you know, and they do a pretty good job about it. I mean, everyone has their favorites, and you know, and like good show. You're not going to do a national show, a pro qualifier, or a pro show and have people look like shit. Everyone's going to look good, so it is tough to make a decision. But you know, like that's probably why they do it. Then they only, because they're usually pretty good about getting the winner right. Usually, you know.
I mean, when you talk to the judges afterwards, they'll tell you where they had you, but it's but it's, they don't. I was like, I asked where I placed when I got off stage, and they were like, we don't get placings. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but
not first.
You can tell by where they move you in the lineup, though.
Yeah. Which is good, but man, that's talk about an emotional roller coaster as a competitor, right? When you get called out, your first call out, they put you at center, and you're so fired up, your heart's racing, you're hitting that front relax as hard as you've ever hit it. Everyone.
That was me.
Yeah. And when the number 242 switch places with number 246, and you look on, and you're like, oh,
well, they moved me out, then they moved me back, and then they moved me out again, and they moved me back again. I was like, fuck.
Sometimes they do it to get a side-by-side comparison of different competitors, so they can get a more accurate gauge, and then they'll move them back to be like, okay, he looks better than that guy. Yep. All right, we'll put him back in the middle. We'll see how he compares to this guy now. That's what
I like when they move. It's hard at the like you go to the nationals, and there's so much. I mean, the nationals this year, there were guys out of the top 20 in the heavies that had strider glutes. You know, so when you have to show that big, it's hard. But I do wish they would compare people more. You know, move people around, because a lot of times they bring you out and they don't move anyone, and sometimes it's obvious, and most of the times they still get it correct.
You're my dog.
You know, like as a competitor, you feel like, man, could you like give me a shot at standing next to that guy? You know.
Well, I knew I was screwed because I know my back double biceps my weakest pose, and they kept comparing me to the guy that won. They had us do the back double bicep 3 times, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, have you guys seen any of the have you seen what Samson looks like for the Arnold?
Oh my god!
Oh, insane!
I gotta show you.
The dude is a big dude.
The thing with him though, he always looks good coming into shows, and he never quite nails it. It seems like that happens with Milos's guys. I don't know.
Milos,
he overdoes the insulin.
Yeah, Milos. I mean. Yeah, god damn. Well, I think Milos tries to do a lot, you know, and when it works, but it's like the old, you know, Dorian Yates used to always say, you know, I'm not willing to risk, you know, being 98% worse for that 1% better, you know.
I mean, this is 6 weeks out, man.
Yeah, and he's still changing every show. It's, you know, like, you know, we know he looks like this now, but we don't know how close to his peak he is. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of guys are looking at like Derek Lunsford could probably add size, but I think he's realized where he's at now. If he needs to refine, not necessarily get bigger. But Samson's like still growing rapidly. Where he could be. I mean, maybe this is his limit. Who knows? But he's
Well,
been.
I think Milos said last year that he had never done trend before. That was his first time doing trend. I thought I heard him say that somewhere.
I won't doubt it. I mean, like anyone that's been a coach knows the genetics. The genetics thing is tough in bodybuilding because this is the only sport where we practice and it's immediately obvious how much our practice has helped us. You know, you play baseball and you practice and you don't like think because I practiced hard today that suddenly I'm going to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Either you were born to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball or you're not. It's like no, unless you're 6'8", 340, you're not playing left tackle in the NFL. But in this sport, like
somebody never watched the movie Rudy.
I guarantee. Well, Joe Montana. You ever see Joe Montana talk about that movie?
No. What did he say?
They hated that dude. Think about it. Don't you remember?
That's awesome.
Those Friday All-Americans. He's like, man, it'd be Notre Dame. Like it, right at the border of Michigan or Indiana. It's like freezing cold. He's like, it'd be 14 degrees outside. We're doing walkthroughs the day before the game without pads, and this guy's running full force, breaking people's fingers and. He's like, we hated that guy. He's playing like it's the Super Bowl, and we're just doing walkthroughs today. We're not going to get injured.
That's hilarious.
Oh, he's the guy that goes 120% all the time. You're like, come on, bro. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah, coach isn't starting you because you broke someone's arm when we're going no pads.
We've all played sports with that guy.
That's the white belt when the coach says we're flow rolling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, jiu-jitsu. Hady Choopan's looking pretty fucking good too, man.
Always does.
I'm excited to see him in person, man. Let me show you. Let me pull him up. Samson put his video up, and then Hady put one up right after. This is 6 weeks out. I mean, he's already got lines in his glutes.
Yeah.
That just looks like he's holding some water to me.
Yeah. I mean, you almost look like you could peek him from there if you needed to.
Yeah.
God, look at his shoulders.
Insane.
I like him because he trains hard. Like heavy and hard. Hope it doesn't get injured because of it, but he works.
That's the problem with doing that style of training is, man, you're taking a risk.
Oh, yeah.
Guys like that usually don't last. But do you have a different look to you? You definitely have a denser look.
Yeah. I mean, that's what
I think there's just less.
That looks amazing.
Do you think it's just largely like less actual like inflammation or less like sarcoplasmic like fluid in the muscle because you're training with lower reps, like that sort of thing? So it brings like a less kind of inflamed look. Do you think that's why you see more separation?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what I would guess is something similar to that. There's more kind of like that powerlifter look, like really dense, a higher percentage of myofibrillar than sarcoplasmic, and it does create kind of a different look. But when it works, it's a great look. But like, I mean, it is Russian roulette. Dorian Yates did it, and it ultimately shortened his career. You say push your body to the limit. Well, it's a limit for a reason. There's only so many times you can push it to the limit before your body reminds you that was the limit.
It's like red line in your car, man. You do it enough times, it's going to blow.
Yeah.
James Hollingshead, man, he looks really good.
I thought he looked like he was like flattening out. I saw a pic. Was it yesterday? Oh, is this a newer one?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite open guys.
Yeah, I'm big.
I like that. Same. I just like his attitude. I like all the UK guys. It's like a different sport over there. Just seems like way more camaraderie.
They're very gritty with their approach to the training and stuff. Like it's very kind of rough.
He's not as hard as I would say that.
I think is that brand new? I think he's really there was a picture I saw somewhere where he
It was a
looked
couple days ago.
very flat. And so they might have just filled him out really hard. He's holding some water.
Yeah, this is 1 day ago.
Yeah, because there was a
Yes.
picture maybe 3 or 4 days ago where he looked pretty flat.
Here's another one. I don't know,
Yeah,
got
because
some-
he flattens out real fast. I remember in his last prep, he had to do like quite a lot of like unlimited high days to kind of
I
get
mean, he
his
looks
fullness
pretty
back.
lean there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing the most with his genetics, that's for sure.
I like him. This was
Yeah,
this was
that's
3 days
insane.
ago.
Yeah, he's a little flatter there.
Yeah.
That's a good look, though.
Yeah, I think he probably looks his best running in a little bit flat
Yeah,
from these photos, judging by them.
yeah, especially those. I would agree 100%.
Well, the rumor I heard was that Nick Walker was going to take Andrew Jack's place. We'll
That's
see.
awesome.
That'll be cool if he does.
Nick Walker looks like he could just walk on stage any day of the year.
He maintains his conditioning better than almost anybody.
Oh man,
He stayed so tight after that last like Olympia prep where he pulled out.
yeah, that's impressive because
Yeah,
like
on an
you
injury.
can imagine like being like if there's ever a fucking I'm eating two
Right.
two
Talk about
carbs,
mental toughness.
That's it. Yeah,
It's that. Yeah.
Here's Nick right now.
He's got good people in his circle, though. I mean, like, he's pretty close with Jay Cutler and stuff now, who was obviously a big idol and influence of him growing up and getting into bodybuilding. So I'd say, like, if he does feel like he's having a bit of a tough time, he's got a good circle of people to kind
that's
of
good.
Yeah.
talk with. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay's great to talk to because I mean he's been through it all and seen it. And he's been at the top of the sport in all aspects of the sport. You know,
Paul had a great conversation with Jay.
He kept talking to me though, even though I was a weirdo.
Paul was in a bit of a fugue the first time he met
And
Jay.
And I was fanboying. Oh man, I embarrassed myself.
I can't help it. I do that with I do that with Ed Cohen every time I see him. I've met him like 25 times now, and I still like I turn like a 12-year-old girl. I start telling him about his photos, like he wasn't the one on the platform doing the lift. You know? I remember when I did that. It's like yeah, I remember too. I saw it.
Ed's such a friendly guy, though. Like, he always has all the time in the world for anyone.
Yeah,
He's such a
really
good person.
He followed me on Instagram recently, and I'm like, why is that kid following me?
Yeah, I was surprised. He still follows. He'll talk about people like he follows like people I wouldn't expect him to follow. You know, like he'll talk about like guys like us. I'm like, that's cool as hell that he's still like still a fan of the whole industry.
This is always wild to me. Nick Walker at 18 and then 29.
I mean, let's talk about just the 29. Is there anybody who has better symmetry than that? Look at how those delts pop. Look at how the arms, they look bubbly on a white, a grainy, bubbly person.
Either. Yeah, I mean, just like that waist shape where it, like you can't control the way where your hips and your the bottom of your rib cage, and then that space between that and where your upper hip. You know, some people it angles the wrong way and ruins your symmetry. Some people straight down. His is just like it was like drawn.
Yeah. And it was bad before. That's the best part is that he had the worst midsection in the IFBB in 2020, and now he has probably the most symmetrical look ever. Whereas Samson's look has started to go bad, Nick's look's gotten better.
Well, what
But you notice? Yeah.
Or go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to say, you notice that when guys are pushing to get some serious size on, I mean, that's what Samson's been doing, growing like a weed. And when Nick was growing like a weed, that's when his stomach went real out of order. And it was because we all know Matt Jansen pushes the food on his guys. Like, everyone knows that. It's not a secret. And to the point where it's almost probably a little detrimental. And then obviously not staying on top of abdominal training, vacuum training, it's pretty easy for that distension and diastasis recti to start to occur.
Well, I heard him.
It's hard, and I think this is a sinful argument also. Like, we're all here trying to add muscle, and so when you're like, you can imagine being like a Nick Walker or Samson, and you're trying to get bigger, and it's all working. It's hard to mentally say no. I need to stop getting, your whole focus 24 hours a day is adding size, and it's working. And I think that's the big problem with Synthol. Guys could use it correctly and know, and I'm sure some of them do, and I know some of them do without being known. But if you were trying to bring up your biceps and your biceps are getting bigger, it's hard mentally to say, you know what, they're big enough now, you know, and that's what ends up happening is people, because you don't want to keep, you know, they can keep getting bigger by doing this thing I'm doing. Yeah. And I think that's the big problem with the waist. It's like, man, you know, I'm growing like crazy. Everything's clicking. The only problem is the waist, and it's real easy, I think, mentally to kind of look past that and just focus on the fact that you're adding size and everything's working so well.
Yeah, both Chase.
Chase is with us even when he's not with us.
Yeah, he's with family, showing off his new baby. He's still watching.
He's the swolly ghost.
The swolly ghost.
I saw him. Well, he went with Domsuperslice for a while, and Dom got his waist down from what I understood. And I think Dom had him come off. What was it? He had him come off of everything and then cut his food weight way down. Had him doing intermittent fasting and shit.
He had him doing keto dieting. He had him doing planks, and he had him doing abs. And Nick, he basically attributed the breakup to Nick not liking the tediousness of that type of stuff. But I think that it's just that Nick missed Matt. And that the relationship he had with Dom was not the personal relationship he had with Matt. That perhaps if Matt had him do the stuff, he probably just kept doing the stuff Dom taught him to do. He just had the relationship with Matt that he wanted. And I mean, if you really pay attention to Nick, I don't know how much coaching he needs. And IT brought up a good point. Is like, Nick attributes most of this to RP style training because people will say, oh, you started using that app. He's like, it's not just the app, it's the way that Jared and Mike train. And it's funny because people are like, well, you're using that science stuff, nerd, but all the pros train like this. And it's like, well, now we have one of the biggest, most impressive pros of all time training with science nerd training, and his training changed how he looked dramatically in 1 year. Which goes back to what I was saying before. It's kind of like, to me, training's the most important part because as long as you're getting calories in, as long as you have an anabolic load of X, you're going to be pro anabolism. But how you train shapes what you look like. And it's what you look like that makes you win.
Genetics is the most important part.
Well, Nick's genetics didn't change, but his body did.
I'm just saying, genetics are what Nick Walker's Nick Walker because of his genetics, not because he picks up heavy things, sticks needles in his body.
The RP approach. Oh, yeah, Paul?
I've been doing RP for, 3-4 years now? Something like that.
It's quite a change.
Yeah. I had the pleasure to actually train with Mike and Jared when they were here in Thailand this week.
Oh, that was awesome.
A couple of times. Yeah, and it's cool like to be able to obviously see how they train on a YouTube video, but then to be able to train with them in person as well. And yeah, like it's effective. Like I can just say that from actually experiencing it now and speaking to them in person and actually going through a couple of sessions with I suppose the principles in place that they follow. And yeah, I mean, it absolutely allows you to get the most out of the least the way that they train.
I think they train a lot harder than people think too.
They do, yeah. They definitely do.
Is that your cat's butt there?
All right. That's too much.
I think training's really like the last frontier. You know, I mean, as far as the anabolics, new ones aren't really getting invented. So and there aren't that many, and so that's more or less dialed in. People know how to use insulin. They know how to use GH. People know how to use anabolics, and I think more and more people know how to do them properly off season or pre-contest to keep health as good as possible. Guys aren't having the health issues that they used to at the rate they used to, but there really was never. I mean, because what science was doing anything in training? It was all for Olympic weightlifting. There was no actual educated scientific people focusing on hypertrophy work. It's not a worry because in most sports, hypertrophy doesn't even benefit you. Most sports are weight classes. Most sports are you moving your body through space where you need the maximum amount of strength, but adding extra weight, especially muscle tissue that has to be supplied constantly with oxygen, can be detrimental in a lot of sports. And so I think, or I hope anyways, that over the next decade or so, and you're seeing it a lot, the UK guys, like trained by JP, really, I mean, it's been a while now since, but with like upper and lower and doing things just dramatically different than what everyone thought was the way to go. Whether it comes through trial and error or there actually becomes, some interest in doing legit clinical research, that feels like the next or final frontier as far as bodybuilding, where we still really don't know what we're doing. Like comparatively, like how well we understand the diet and how to peak someone and how to approach the diet compared to like the 1970s or 80s, so much more advanced. But training, guys are still doing a lot of same work as they were doing in the 80s.
I laughed when I had Mike on. I had him on a few weeks back for an interview, and he was just like, every gym bro wants to be a biochemist and endocrinologist when it comes to gear, but when it comes to weights, they're just like, lift some iron, bro.
Yeah.
Sling heavyweight.
How much bench?
How much bench?
Yeah, that's the irony.
He made a good point. He's like, he's like, you want to make things as simple as they can be, but no simpler.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good way of putting it. Do we want to take some questions?
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions.
People want to ask Justin things.
Yeah. Let's see.
Some of them are getting anxious.
We'll start off with the super chats. Those people were kind enough to give us money to ask their questions. Sean Turner, Justin, what is the best way to measure out how many calories you need for maintenance? Probably you've never had this question before, so I'll give you a moment to think about it.
Well, I hate this. There's a reason I have a customized diet program called Massive and called Shredded that I say is reasonably effective for everyone from a 97-pound female to a 320-pound pro off-season male bodybuilder in both ways. But I don't have a maintenance one. It's because maintenance is 1,000 times harder because you have to be exact. It's like if you want to lose body fat, you just need to create a deficit. 500 calories a day over 7 days is about a pound of fat loss. But you don't need to know your metabolism to the calorie, and it changes so much, and so it's a bell curve range. There isn't really a way. Honestly, I think for most people, the best way to kind of start is to eat foods. How am I going to word this? Like pick it, kill it, grow it foods that you could pick from a tree, grow from a garden, or hunt for meat. Just foods where the food, like if you look at the food label and it says ingredients, and the ingredient is, meat, rice. Like it's not a list of ingredients. It's if you just eat those foods, and you can make them as flavorful as you want, but your body kind of self-regulates. It's like the types of foods that we ate for 100,000 years. Mm-hmm. Your body's fairly well at self-regulating. Where I find if I let people just do that, we end up pretty quickly getting to a calorie count. It's not going to be exact because guys with terrible appetites are going to undereat. Guys with huge appetites are going to overeat. But it gets you, that kind of gets you in that bell curve range where you can start refining. But other than that, you can't take someone and say, okay, you have this many pounds of lean body mass, you're this tall, you do this many steps a day. I can guarantee this is your BMR, because it varies so wildly. Like I could tell you right now, Paul and I are similar weights. I'm probably quite a bit leaner than Paul, but no, Paul's obviously leaner, but we're similar body weights right now, and his BMR is well over 1,000 calories a day higher than mine. And so if we tried to just use any calculations based on like stats, neither of us would come to the same conclusion.
And I put that to test with McDoubles.
Yeah, Paul thinks when you say pick it, you're picking off the value meal.
Yeah, picking off the value meal.
The value menu, the dollar menu. And when you say kill it, it's like, well, I could kill a whole pizza. So.
Oh my God, McDonald's is my weakness, man.
Yeah,
if my kryptonite is Mickey D's,
I have
I'm
celiac,
ashamed.
so I can't anymore. But the old dollar menu, I used to almost, I think maybe, come in my pants a little bit when I go. I get four double cheeseburgers and turn them into 2 quadruple cheeseburgers. That was just heaven. You're not eating. Who knows what you're eating? But I mean, it's got every flavor that you've ever wanted, all right there.
I got a horrific.
Sorry, guys.
I got a horrific McDonald's cheeseburger story for you. I was cleaning my son's room out, and I found a McDonald's cheeseburger that had to have been months old in a wrapper behind his desk, and it still looked like the day he bought it.
Did you eat it?
There's someone that's been doing that since the 70s. It pops up every once in a while.
Famous.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw a meme the other day. It was I can't remember which European country it was. The last McDonald's closed in 2009, and they had like a cheeseburger meal on display under this, like a cake cover, and it looked exactly like it was when it was first made. It's freaky.
It's got to mean it's healthy, right? I mean, there's no chance of it turning into like bacteria in your body, I guess.
Yeah, but you look at that, you take one look, and you're like, "That's not food. That is not food. Like, it really isn't."
Food adjacent.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got up next, Colin?
Brad here. He's 5'9", 195, 18% body fat. Wants to be 10% body fat at 200 pounds. Should I focus on leaning out first or building muscle first? He started at 250 pounds 2 years ago. First off, congratulations on losing all that weight, man.
Yeah, nice job.
I think lean out first.
People might disagree, but if you're over 12% body fat, I would recommend your focus be on getting leaner before you try to put on size. You're just going to struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already 18% body fat. It's not hard to, you have to be in a calorie surplus. Doesn't need to be very big, but unless your blood androgen levels are very high, you're not synthesizing new muscle tissue in a hypocaloric diet. It is possible, but you got to be blasting stuff, and even then, eventually your blood levels level off and your body kind of stabilizes. But if you're 18% body fat already, adding 2% body fat isn't going to take very much, work. And then boom, you're 20% body fat, your insulin sensitivity is worse, your rate of aromatization, your estrogen is higher, and you're already fatter, Whereas if you could just diet yourself down to around 10%, then you got 8% to play with just to get back to where you are now. That's always going to end up with a higher lean body mass, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What I've seen, Justin, like from working with you, it's like every time we diet down hard and then I gain weight and come back, I'm leaner. I basically just get back up to the same off-season weight, but I'm leaner each time.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing, I think everyone starts, because most people get in this sport because they want to get bigger, I mean, this guy's kind of, he was losing weight, but most guys, I want to get big. And so that's what we focus on. But really, every good thing from bodybuilding, as far as like being muscular, looking like a bodybuilder, it comes from being lean, Everyone knows how easy you grow after a contest, and just the statement, if you were 6% body fat, or think how much muscle you could add if you could add 15 pounds of pure fat and still look lean. It just gives you so much more wiggle room to start any growth phase from a low body fat.
Well, I'm putting that to test right now. Just doing the math here, like with Brad, so he's 195. He'd have to get down to about 180 to be 10% body fat, somewhere around there. So that's 20 pounds of lean mass he's got to add to be 10% at 200 pounds. That's a fair amount of muscle.
That's about 5-6 years.
Yeah. Assuming he's drug free and all like not a complete noob.
Yeah,
at least a couple years worth of work.
Yeah. And that's the hard reality of the sport. I get people signing up all the time. Like my question is, what are your goals? Be 285 pounds at 5% body fat. It's like, that's wonderful, but you signed up for 3 months. You got
how much growth hormone do I have to take?
Yeah. That much. If you could buy China, there's maybe a chance.
There's a chance.
I do occasionally. I'm sure you guys get all of them. I had this had a person recently. It was 6 weeks, and he was telling me he was disappointed with his results. I'm like, dude, 6 fucking weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Nick Walker is a perfect example. You know, that picture. You know, that 10-year difference or whatever. That, you know, make a linear progression. Imagine what that looked like changed over 10 years. Over any 6-week period, he didn't look any different. You know, minimally, but it's tough to see. You know, but you do that. You stay focused for that decade, and you make that. You know, because I think he's gained in 12 years 120 pounds of stage weight. So 10 pounds
something
a year,
like that. Yeah,
less than
averages out.
You know,
A few grams a day.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
A few grams of muscle a day.
Yeah. Well, if you do the math, and Todd and I have done this before, and actually I used to do it incorrectly. I'd say 25 grams of protein a day. But I was only considering the protein structures. If you consider the sarcoplasmic adaptations and say muscles 70% water, if you turn 19 grams of protein per day to new muscle, that's 50 pounds of muscle a year, you know? So not much is going on. All fighting for like 2 grams of muscle protein synthesis a day, basically, you know?
To get 5 pounds a year.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, so, you know, like, guys have these grand goals, and it's like, no, have grand goals, but that's what you're playing with. Find a way to eke out. If you could eat that up to 3 grams, you're already, you know, 50% faster rate of growth.
I pretty much just have to break it down in my terms. Like, I was like, in the past 15 years, I've put on maybe 75 pounds a month. That's what, 5 pounds a year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's on the outside. I mean, when you look at stage weight, it's more like 50 pounds in the last 15 years, which is like 3 pounds.
Yeah.
And then people are really like disappointed. I'm like, so either I'm incredibly shitty at my job, or this is actually what happens.
And that is what happens. And so that's why I tell you, like, have big goals and long-term goals, but don't put too much thought into them, because if you don't love the process, you're never going to get to that goal. And B, if you do love the process, that goal is going to change 1,000 times, you know? But I remember I wanted to bench 185, you know, that like with my, you know, day one. So like goals mean nothing, because, you know, if you love the process, eventually you get to the point where, you know, your goals just change so much. But
do you bench 185?
I did not get it on video, but
I can personally attest that I've watched Justin do multiple sets of 405 in an incline.
Impressive.
In person with it was a Smith, but the Smith was rusty and broken, so it was actually harder than free weights, because I insisted on using the Smith. He's like, okay, but this is harder.
My superpower is not putting too much thought into the process. That's possibly what I'm best at. Paul can attest to that.
With enough THC, anything is possible.
THC and TRT.
That's a good t-shirt.
New shirt idea.
I'm making that shirt right now. I gotta be.
That's for you, Justin. Jimmy L, I appreciate you too, man. Thank you. I appreciate everybody who tunes in.
Thank you,
otherwise,
buddy.
we'd just be talking to ourselves.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Let's see here. Got a question here from one. Do you guys have any tips on how to get things moving in the right direction when you're around 25 to 30% body fat? He's only eating 1,400 calories, getting 10,000 steps in a day, but the weight is not coming off. Is it reasonable to lower calories more than
No?
He says, yeah, I know. He's on TRT and he works out with a push-pull legs routine 6 days a week, but does not use fat burners.
Too much adaptive thermogenesis. He's got too much diet fatigue. He needs to reverse his calories up, build them up till his energy availability basically caps out, and then stay there for a few weeks and then go into another deficit.
I think.
I was just going to ask, is the assumption that weight is not coming off? Is that what he's saying?
That's what he says. Yeah, the weight is not coming off.
How long has he been dieting? Like what Nick said, how long has he been dieting for?
Yeah. That's what I want to say. I think weight should be removed from his brain.
Yeah.
Weight, if you're trying to lose weight, that has no day-to-day correlation with body composition. 70% of our, you know, even this guy's 30% body fat, but 70% of our body, you know, or 20%, whatever, 70% of our body is water. You know, 25% of this guy's body is fat. So he's using the scale where 70% of it is changed by how much fluid he's drinking. You know, this guy, I mean, maybe he is eating 1,400 calories and 10,000 steps. This thing weighs 1.5 pounds. Maybe he lost 1.5 pounds that week. He drinks this and goes steps on the scale. Weight didn't change. You know, don't forget weight. You know, I mean, if you're at 1,400 calories and moving that much and nothing's changing. Yeah, you need to don't lower calories further, but stop focusing on the weight. You got the scale. I look at it this way: our cars are similar to us. We fill it with energy and we burn off that energy. You know, we eat food, and if we eat more food energy than we burn, we store it. You know, our cars can't store it, but you can imagine if they could. What you're basically doing with the scale is weighing your car every morning to determine how much gas is in the tank.
It's a great analogy.
Yes, it weighs less when there's less gas in the tank, but the vast majority of the weight of the car has nothing to do with the gas tank. You know, and so you might be on empty and actually losing fat, but you have an extra kid in the car that day and the car weighs more. You know, the scale is just the scale over a long term, over a 6-month period. It correlates with body composition fairly well. From day to day, or even week to week, or even monthly, there's very minimal correlation with body composition and body.
I have a question. I have a question for you guys. How do you evaluate check-ins? I know for me, I look at the current pictures and then I'll take a look back at the starting pictures and see where things are. And occasionally I'll send those comparisons to people just so they can see.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar. I was just going to say similar, but I also take average weekly weights into account, but I make sure my guys weigh themselves after they take a shit and like same time roughly every morning. And I get the weekly average, add them all together, divide it by 7. And each week I'll get a rough kind of plot of where that's headed. And I treat the body weight as a proxy for progress, but not an indicator or a measure of progress. Like you guys said, like I treat the visuals more important and to be like, where were they? Where are they at now? How's their performance? Are they progressing in their training? That sort of thing.
What I do is the first thing I do is thumbnail views, and I think this is something that, like, I don't know when I stumbled on it, but it was like really mind opening. If you go find a picture of like, I don't know, 1996 Ronnie versus 1998 Ronnie, you know 98 Ronnie is way better than 96 Ronnie. But if you do a high res zoomed in photo of their lats and both of his right lats, and try to tell me what's different, you won't be able to see any difference. Now you zoom it out and just do a thumbnail view of 96 Ronnie, 98 Ronnie. You look at 98 Ronnie, it's like, holy shit, that's a different person. And so I think people send these mega high res images, and that's great for for analyzing body fat. Like in contest prep, you need to see how much fat's on the lower back. But if what I start out with is I do the thumbnail, so I get a silhouette of their whole physique, and then I can compare that with previous ones, and you get boom. Right away, you can see, oh yeah, this dude's shoulders are growing, and so that's what I do. I only really ever look at weight if the pictures aren't telling a story to me, are confusing me, and because that's when the weight will tell a story. If I see a guy and it's like, you're like watery but flat, something's not, and I look at his weight, and it's like you lost 3 pounds this week and you're watery. It's like, okay, what could be causing that? There's inflammation. You're probably getting sick. Have you noticed any? Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm all stuffy this morning. I feel like I'm getting the flu. That's when the weight comes into play for me. But I always say, give me your weight, because it's a nice secondary metric when the pictures don't tell the whole story. But you don't stand on, your number when you're on stage doesn't say what you weighed that minute.
Mm-hmm. I like that silhouette idea. That's really cool.
Yeah. Stumbled on one time, and it's interesting when you look at it, like, because you could take, like a 2003 Ronnie versus 96 Ronnie, and if it's zoomed in high res and you're just looking at their biceps, his right bicep, it's like they look the same. Then you zoom out, and it's like, holy crap, Ronnie's 50 pounds bigger here.
So, to answer that guy's question, after 12 weeks, if you're natural, and TRT is basically natural, after 12 weeks, you're probably not going to lose any more fat. You need to reverse out of it, or at least quickly get back up to your isocaloric point. which, like Justin says, is almost impossible to hit on the head. And after staying there for 2 to 4 weeks, it depends on who you ask, your metabolism, specifically your thyroid, will go back to normal. And then we can resume a diet. This is called a diet break. Israel likes 2-week diet breaks. Lyle McDonald narrowed it down to a 2-day diet break, somewhere in that range. So what I used to do, and what me and Justin found worked really good for me, is that Jay Cutler had done basically a 1-day diet break every 100 hours. And that Justin and I found that for me, the ideal was every 5 days. So it'd be like low, 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 high, low, 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 high. And that getting me back up to maintenance was almost impossible, especially to push beyond maintenance. And what I found was doing a dirty cheat after a high day resulted in fat gain. Doing a clean high day resulted in reloading without any fat accumulation.
So, and that makes sense thermodynamic, because you can even do the math. You know, we store energy as food energy as proteins, we store it as muscle, as carbs, we store it as glycogen, and fat, we store it as fat. So like Todd said, if he's that depleted, he's obviously glycogen depleted. So if we eat clean with a lot of carbs, those excess calories are getting stored. They're still being stored, but rather than being stored as fat, they're getting stored as glycogen. You know, it's almost like a cheat to the system if you do it right, you know?
Mm. And the thermic effect of food's high for protein and carbs too, so the digestion process, you limit it to trace fats, no added fats, and just carbs and proteins. You're getting a larger turnover in terms of total calories burnt per day just in digesting and processing the food.
Yeah,
so that helps you too.
Regulation, or quicker thyroid regulation.
And you should still burn fat that night while you're sleeping. So even though you might be in a calorie surplus, since you're in a fat deficit, you're still going to burn fat. And like Justin said, the weight is misleading, especially if you were using super physiologic levels of gear. So ultimately, I think 1,400 calories, if you start reversing out of that, you go 1,600, then you go up, and then 4 days later, you go up to 1,800, then 4 days later, go up to 2,000. You'll start burning fat faster until there's a point at which you won't burn fat anymore. Once your weight is adapted to the calorie intake, and then you can then start to diet all over again.
Yeah, the thing with calories too, we don't, the metabolic adaptation isn't as dramatic as I think the lay public thinks. You know, people always say, you know, like I was in starvation mode, you know, like, you know, I think that, but there are adaptations, and you don't have to look any farther than, you know, it's morbid, but you know, you can go to Ethiopia and people are eating very low calorie diets, you know, not by choice, and they're not dead, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that's a long, slow adaptation, you know, but there is adaptation. So if you're at 1,400 calories and you're there for over and over, I don't know, remember if he said how long it was, but if you're at 1,400 calories for 2 years, you know, like your body's learned that, you know, and whether it's learned, whether it's, you know, actual metabolism has changed. I mean, there will be thyroid adaptation and stuff, but things like your day, your meat, your little things, like how I'm anxious and jerking, moving around in a chair. I've been noticing contest prep. By the end of prep, I realized, like, when I was at my desk, nothing on my body moved. You know, you're not antsy anymore. You know, you just, your body
napping all day.
Your body learns to conserve every calorie it can.
Yeah, the meat makes up for 20 to 30% of your metabolism.
And
the
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Like ectomorphs specifically, I think have, since their notochord developed first, and so technically their nervous system developed first, ectomorphs tend to have fast metabolisms, I think, just because they have more nervous system activity, which means their NEAT's higher. And of course, their endoderm developed last, so they absorb less. And I know that there's a lot of scientists out there who say that somatotypes aren't real, but I don't know. I think that it just makes, I see too much actual real life evidence that if the endoderm develops first, the endomorph has more food absorption, and the opposite is true for the ectomorph.
Whether somatotypes are like, whether that's the proper word or there's only 3 of them or whatever, you can't deny that everyone knows guys growing up that look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. They know guys that were fat, and they know guys that looked, you know, like a bodybuilder, even though they didn't work out. You know, they're just, you can't deny that.
Yeah, there's something to it.
Yeah. But yeah, to add to that question quickly, like the things like you said, Justin, and you too, Todd, like the whole metabolic adaptation from the standpoint of like your actual thyroid downregulating and those like cellular processes in the mitochondria, the degree that kind of, I suppose, changes is pretty small. Like you'd probably say maybe around 10-15% of your total energy expenditure at the absolute most, but probably lower. It's like you said, the biggest needle mover is the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Next to BMR, that is the next biggest contributor to your total daily energy expenditure. So you'll as you diet longer and longer, you progressively get less and less fidgety, active, like you're saying, Justin, less bounce in your step. And that can correlate to a significant reduction in calorie expenditure. Say you're like maintaining at 3,500 calories a day and you're like 20 weeks into dieting, and say you have had like a massive downregulation in your NEAT. Say your like NEAT's reduced by like 80% or something from what it was. Like 80% of say 30% of your total calories. We're talking hundreds of calories per day down.
Yeah,
not only that, you've also lost weight.
You're talking almost
and
2 pounds of fat a week difference at that point.
100%. And then another thing that people forget, the big thing that I pull a lot of people up on, you guys probably do too, if you start a diet and you're say 20 weeks in, you're nowhere near as heavy as you were when you started. And like a factor in your total calorie expenditure is body weight. If your body weight is 40 pounds lighter, you're not going to burn anywhere near the same calories because you've made progress. Like,
good point too. Yeah. You lose 40 pounds. Yeah. Put a 40-pound weight vest on and walk around all day and feel, see how tired you are. You've lost that now. Yeah. I noticed in recent years I've added, I've set like a baseline NEAT. Like I've been doing it more and more, not with every client, but especially like first-time prep guys. Like guys do prep and they know how it all works. I don't need to do this, but I'll set something like, I'll say 50,000 steps per week minimum, and they'll be like, well, like per day, just use the app on your phone. It doesn't have to be exact. Just, that's about 7,000 calories steps a day. You're probably already doing more. And they'll report back. You're like, oh, coach, yeah, I'm already doing like 8 or 9. You just, I'm like, I know, but just remember that's our minimum, and they get 6 weeks into the diet and suddenly they realize they're under that and they have to act, And so I've been doing that a lot more to kind of set like a NEAT baseline minimum so we know, and like you said though, with the weight though, even worse though, if we don't slowly increase that, we're still decreasing metabolic output.
Yeah. And I find it's the only way to keep your heart rate up too with cardio is you get deeper into a prep. It's like adding a weighted vest makes a massive difference if you're doing your like flat cardio sort of thing. If you do like morning walks at the start of prep for like, I should say the start of your daily cardio or whatever, and your heart rate's getting up to like 100, 110 beats per minute, like when you're very fit, lighter, leaner, like say like 10, 12 weeks into prep, you probably find that your heart rate's sitting around like 85, 90, and you need to actually add a 22-pound vest to actually get it up to the same heart rate.
I noticed my step count plummets to the same distance, and the only thing I can think of is that peak off season, I waddle. My step travel isn't as long, and then as I get in shape, I'm taking longer strides because I'll be like, man, I do doing the same walk. It's like to the end of our road and back. It's like a half mile, just like a thing my wife and I do. And I'm like, as I get leaner and better shape, somehow my step count decreases. That's the only thing I can my waddle is directly proportional to my body fat.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. I turn into a spaz at the end of prep. I'm like organizing my garage and cleaning out closets and doing shit.
I'm the same as you.
Never do.
It's probably why our metabolisms run away. It's probably why our metabolisms run away, to be honest.
Well, aren't you
whether or not I actually need to breathe because it's tiring to move my lungs.
Well, Paul, you use like what's it called? What's the Bronchade one? Ephedrine?
Ephedrine.
I didn't use it the last month of prep this year, and I'm still a spaz.
Okay.
But that's the thing, like you add some people and I think that's the typical ectomorph. If you take calories away from them, they'll stay just as active, if not get more active. You add calories, they get more active, whether they realize it or not. Their fidgeting increases. And I can't remember the study. You guys can probably cite it or remember it. There was a study where they looked at the the flux in energy expenditure when overfed 1,000 calories, and there was like a portion of the population or the test subjects that saw like an 800 calorie increase in energy expenditure through fidgeting, and there was actually another group or another portion of the group that actually got less active as you gave them 800 calories more, and the change in weight, like the range of weight gain and weight loss was like substantial.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw the abstract. I read this whole study, and I totally forgot about you brought that up. That's an interesting one. That makes me wonder also with like because there's so many variables. You have extroverts and introverts also. You know, like for me, I'm pretty introverted. If I go to like a wedding reception, I'm exhausted afterwards.
I'm ready too.
It's like it's draining for me. But I guarantee I burn more calories than an extrovert does, even though they're probably, they're out talking to everyone, but it's just so calm and relaxed. Where for me, it's like tense and it's just uncomfortable. And I'm fidgety, and I'm doing things like reminding Ed Cohn that he deadlifted 900 pounds with a 2-hour weigh-in.
Yeah, I'm only extroverted around you guys, like people that I really gel with. Like if it's just other people, I'll be very introverted. And I mean, if I go out, same with you guys, if I go out for social events, I mean, this week, the past couple of weeks with Mike and Jared and everyone visiting, like we did a few things. We went to Cheesecake Factory, we trained together and stuff. And like just those 3 social events over the last 2 weeks, I've spent the last like 2 to 3 days pretty much in like quarantine, just trying to recover. Like I've just been so mentally drained. Like today I woke up, the only reason I was able to get my ass off the couch and basically start my day is I popped a Modafinil and 3 shots of an espresso. If I didn't do that, I got 9 hours sleep. I was a sap burnt out from like all the socializing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Modafinil is a magic pill also.
I've never tried it.
It's great because there's, at least for me, there's none of the euphoria or anything like you would do with Adderall. It's not like I don't feel like like that you want to keep taking it, or you're alert, focused, and it's like, but there's no. If I don't take it, I don't feel any different. If I know if I'm dragging ass, I need to get sleep, and I need to be functional. It's like I'm functional, but I'm not euphoric or. So maybe some people won't like it because a lot of people like to get high, but you don't feel anything like that. You just it's like better than caffeine for as far as you're focused, but you're not like jittery or anxious. At least for me,
it inhibits dopamine transporters in the same way that methamphetamines or amphetamines do, but just to a lesser extent. So that's why you don't get it's not as addicting or it's not as strong as like amphetamines, like Adderall, but it works in the same way.
Because I could write an article on modafinil. You give me an Adderall, and I would never publish that article because I'd be so embarrassed once Adderall wore off and I really saw what I wrote, adding all these side notes and like segues here.
So
they did actually.
You're saying it's the uptake inhibitor?
Yeah.
What? The modafinil?
Yeah. Is it
dopamine
reuptake?
reuptake? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we want to grab another question.
Yeah. Right, Ryan. I was just going to say, have you heard about them treating ADHD with modafinil? I know they were looking into it for a bit, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. I don't know. Why you wouldn't try that. I mean, there's again, it's has a lot to do with probably stigmatization of those sorts of drugs. But because there's a lot of studies that try to say that, well, it works under the same mechanisms as Adderall or an amphetamine and is therefore bad for you. Right? So there's some stigma to modafinil as well. But it would make sense because almost universally it's reported that it's not as strong, not as addictive.
I don't know much about Adderall. Does Adderall have effect on GABA?
More so, I'm just
reading.
Inhibits the dopamine transporters, so they can't transport them out of your cell. So it allows dopamine to.
Yeah, I'm reading on because I'm just reading around. It says it inhibits your uptake of dopamine. So at postsynaptic left, it's gonna inhibit it being taken back up by the presynapse. but then it says modafinil activates glutaminergic circuits while inhibiting GABA. I just didn't know if that had any reasoning. I never actually looked up the mechanism of action of modafinil. I just can't remember someone gave me one time, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty sweet."
Who cares how it works?
Yeah. I don't want to know. Let it be magic.
All right. Jimmy wants to know, how beneficial do you think Proviron is on prep? I really like it, but hear a lot of people saying it has minimal benefits.
I kind of took John Jewett's advice this year. Like he's like, rather than running Proviron, just run more Masteron. And that's what I did. Seemed to work.
Yeah. The only caveat I would have with that is I find that, and this might be not such a bad thing in prep because it's one thing off your mind, but I find with whatever it is with Masteron, the way it inhibits aromatization and then prolactin, is it seems that after a period of time it really starts to cause sexual dysfunction. See real strong issues like not being able to finish, completely losing sex drive, which is the opposite with Proviron. And I don't have any scientific reasoning for that other than I seem to notice it pretty regularly in clients that they're on Masteron past about maybe week 10 or so. It seems like there's like a sharp increase where all of a sudden they're saying, "Coach, hey, this never happened to me before," and I that's the only, I don't have any I haven't had time to really look into it more. I don't, maybe someone has more on it. I kind of see it bottoming E2, but go ahead.
So Proviron, I would say the only use is in a
SHBG.
Is it what? No, because SHBG is useless. I don't know why people focus on that number. It's not doing. It's like when you're literally manipulating a drop in a river. It's not going to change anything. It's in a stack where there's very low androgenic potential. Like if you were to run DECA alone, or even DECA and test if the test is low, you might need more androgenic potential in order to achieve like sexual intercourse. What's occurring is Proviron is basically an oral DHT with the 1-methyl groups. It prevents some level of liver breakdown, but it's not modified at carbon 2. So it will still be broken down by 3 hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase enzyme. That's what's going to control the DHT function when it comes to erection. So it will add that, where Masteron and Primobolan both are blocking that enzyme to some extent. So you're not going to get the full sexual benefits from those drugs, but you need that enzyme to not work if you want it to be anabolic.
I like this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a good explanation.
So what you're saying is that the Proviron still works like a DHT molecule, whereas where the other
more bioidentical.
Yeah, Masteron is not acting as a DHT.
I know, where the modified DHTs can work as an anabolic, but then they no longer work like DHT.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because once you make a DHT able to be anabolic, it no longer can interact with that enzyme. That's
now isn't Primo methylated at the 1 carbon, not the 2 carbon, or does that still destabilize 3 beta HSD?
It does, but not fully. So it's not as stable as Masteron would be in that sense.
You say Primo at the 1, because I don't notice that problem with Primobolan. I notice it with
Masteron. So it's just not as strong as effect. That's why Masteron has a worse effect on sex drive for some people. Again, everything. So there's someone's going to comment in a second and say Masteron.
Well, that actually explains, and I know that a lot of people don't like these assays, but Primo is supposed to have a 57 androgenic, and Masteron's supposed to have a 25 to 40 androgenic, and that could be because
there is typically no.
I don't get it. Oh, I got it.
All right, because there's really no anabolic or androgenic rating for Masteron. The ones that you see written in these books are made up. What basically happened when Syntax and Lilly Pharmaceutical invented those drugs, they invented Anadrol, Superdrol, and drostanolone at the same time. They started in rats first, and they realized that drostanolone had no anabolic effect at all. So the only way to get it to market was to pitch that it was for breast cancer to the FDA. So the FDA was like, fine. So they took drostanolone as a pure breast thing, and they discontinued any research further with anabolism. So we only know it interacts with sex hormone binding globulin. They didn't do ER stuff. They did ERA, ERB. There's none of that data exists. So in any of those books, like Llewellyn's book, You see that stuff? He made that number up.
Oh, wow.
And we do know it for Superdrol because Superdrol was anabolic. When you methylate it at 17 carbon, it does become anabolic. And with Anadrol as well, they further explored the anabolism of those two drugs. And they just wanted to make money back on Masteron. They weren't going to use it. That's why it was never used for that. And Lilly Pharmaceutical came up with the idea for Syntex beat them to the race to produce it. And then Lilly sued them and they won 50% of the rights to it. So that's why it has different names. That's why it was like Droban and Masteril and Masteron. Depends on what country, they split the rights depending on where they were selling it.
I see.
So,
Masteron. I know so I can't answer for Chase, for John Jewett, but I have not noticed any of those side effects. And I'm running 2 grams of Masteron a week and 1 gram of test. So is one to assume that the 154 DHT I'm producing for my 1 gram of test enough to obviate any of the supposed sexual dysfunction from the Masteron? In other words, I could have been taking 1,000 tests and 2 grams of Masteron. I could just eliminate the 2 grams of Masteron and I still have all the effects of the 1 gram of test and the associated DHT. It's not that Masteron cancels out DHT. No. It's just that these individuals are basically running low doses of test and DHT.
Yeah.
And so the amount of actual DHT activity is so low, they're not noticing it. When a normal man produces, let's say 40 or 50 DHT from his endogenous 100 test.
Yeah. With men's sexual function too, it's not one thing. It's not DHT.
It's really complicated.
Multifaceted.
And in any of the studies where they really look at this stuff, testosterone has to be stable first, and then they look at where estrogen and DHT go. Because if testosterone's off, then everything gets thrown out the window anyway.
What I've noticed is estrogen seems to make you want to pull something in, and DHT is the actual penis sensitivity.
Okay. Well, I have literature on this with estrogen. I don't know if this is even, you guys want to even talk about this. With estrogen, testosterone is stable. If estrogen is high, it tends to cause premature ejaculation and extra sensitivity, like hypersensitivity. If estrogen is low, it causes lack of sensitivity and prolonged ejaculation. But again, testosterone it was equated in both of those groups. That's the current data. And that DHT itself on its own was relatively irrelevant as long as testosterone was good. So whatever conversion rate was happening in this group of people was adequate. Adding extra.
So estradiol was the biggest needle mover.
That's what it seems like it is. I don't know. Again, I don't know the people in this group. I don't know if they were fit, if they were fat, if they were diabetic. I don't know. Todd is finishing.
Yes, Todd's finishing.
Anecdotally, I can attest to what you said, though, Todd. When my testosterone was low with Masteron, I did notice negative impact on my libido, but when I pushed testosterone up, completely the other story.
Yeah, that's what I always, especially if guys are going to use Masteron, I tend to be a higher test guy for that reason. I'll just say, well, I don't, they decide, but I let them know that if you choose to go low test, this is likely what you're going to experience, later in prep. Which you might not care. At 4 weeks out, you might not care at that point anyways. But
no.
At the end of the day, if estradiol gets a little bit too high with a higher testosterone, sprinkle in a low dose of an AI or introduce a bit of Primo to control estradiol a little bit more. Like, it's that simple. Like, you don't need to just do low test because that's all you can tolerate if it's going to have other negative implications.
Yeah, that's good. Anecdotally and empirically, like I've seen thousands and thousands of people use these, and I've heard the reports. That's the nature of what I did and how I was able to aggregate a lot of empirical and anecdotal data. It seems that everybody's just different with the 3 compounds that we're talking about. Primo, Drostanolone, and Proviron. And I usually tell people try Primo first. That seems to work best for most people. Then I say actually Proviron works for some people just as well as the next. And then I usually see that Masteron, depending on the person, works as well, but probably as a third best. So it just comes to you. Try all 3 and see which one works best for you.
So what I find most
individual variability is a good point.
What doesn't make sense to me is that if there is the methyl group on carbon 2 on Masteron, and structurally it's so similar to, let's say, Anavar, how does it have zero anabolic effect?
I didn't say it as zero. I don't want anyone to
that's what they concluded.
You're talking about 1959 and talking about rats. That doesn't mean that it has zero. And look, the only one I would say with confidence that has zero anabolic activity is Proviron.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's the other one that's like stanozol? Danazol, that has zero anabolic activity.
I'm not familiar with that one. It must
we
probably
use it for like assays to see. So that's one that and Winstrol interact with the surface membrane. That's what it's used. But it doesn't have any anabolic activity. No, I didn't say Masteron doesn't. The conversation people don't. Todd and I talk every day about this stuff.
Yeah, that's why Kurt's frustrated with me because I had love a comment Masteron.
To Todd. I was just saying, instead of using 2 grams of Masteron,
right?
To me, it doesn't make any sense. It's not that efficient. If you have to run 2 grams of something, it's clearly not that efficient. Outside of testosterone, I would personally run 800 EQ at 600 tren. I would use something that's more efficacious in that point instead of using 2 grams of something that one's not proven, two's never been studied in males. We don't know what it does, right? That study that I just put up, two of the metabolites are cytotoxic. I personally wouldn't be taking 2 grams of the stuff. And the original argument that's frustrating to me, at least, is that everyone's like, I'm safe. I don't use Arimidex. Right? And meanwhile, Arimidex is safe. And they're like, but I'm going to use 2 grams of a drug that's only been tested on rats in 1959. So who is safe there? That's not safe.
Yeah.
My reasoning is a little different. So because in me, Primo is an AI.
Yes.
And EQ is an AI. And I want to maintain my estrogen where it's at. The only drug that doesn't either drive up estrogen, drive down estrogen, or drive up DHT is Masteron. So for me to achieve my perfect balance of 100 DHT to 100 estrogen, I have to do it a certain way. And that's why Masteron's the only option. That the DECA, based on yours and Ryan's video, will bind to progesterone, which will then make my estrogen receptors more sensitive. And I looked this up. It makes estrogen alpha in the breast more sensitive, which causes gyno, but it makes estrogen beta more receptive in the muscle, which leads to muscle growth. So it actually means, Todd, that I even got my gyno removed so I could use nandrolone, and I still am getting new fresh gyno from using any estradiol over 100. So then, because that, and I don't want it to go down more, because in order for me to drive up my test, I would get more DHT. But when I would use, what's the proper, the not finasteride, the other one, dutasteride. When I use dutasteride, even 1 pill every 10 days, that induced gyno.
Okay.
So I have to keep the DHT at almost exactly a 1-to-1 ratio, because if the DHT gets too high, the hair falls out. If the E2 gets too high or the DHT gets too low, the gyno starts to come back. Yeah. So to maintain that perfect balance, I have to balance my test with Primo just right, which in me is a 5-to-1 ratio. And I'm able to move them and still hit 100 on the nose every time. So for me to have that one, so it has to be 700 test to 140 Primo to get a 100 to 100 ratio. If I go up to 1,000 and 200, then that ends up being a 150 to 100 ratio. So the only drug that is able to modulate the anabolic load but not influence DHT or E2 is Masteron. And I assume that Masteron is 60 to 50% as strong as test. That's why it's 2 grams. So another time of using 1 gram of test, 1 gram of Primo, I'm using 1 gram of test, 2 grams of Masteron to get the equivalent of 2 grams of real anabolic potential.
And if I can, I don't mean to speak for you, Todd, but to people, because I don't know if people know the background of this conversation. My frustration wasn't stemming from you, because you were actually concerned with being healthy and safe, and you get your labs done, and you're doing this exactly. It's the influencers who are saying they're using 2 grams of test and 2 grams of Masteron. You look at their picture, and I can tell you, I'll put $1,000 on it. Those are not using, that's not the drugs these guys are using. When you look at their prep photos, that's EQ, that's Trend, that's Winstrol. They're using 10 grams of various things and playing it off that they're safe. And they're influencing kids by saying, don't use Arimidex because it'll raise your cholesterol, but they're on 10 grams of gear. And then I get the consult calls where then I have to diffuse things because these kids either are using way too many drugs or they're letting their estrogen get to 200 nanograms per deciliter because some social influencer told them that estrogen high is anabolic in men.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, they're lactating.
Maybe if you're a cow.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's not you that was frustrating me with that. It's just what's going on in the scene right now is just everything is backwards.
I have an important question for the anabolic experts on here. What is the perfect ratio of McDoubles to McFlurries?
According to Roman,
I'm still trying to sort that out.
That's a question for Roman, and he would say it's 4 McDoubles to 4 McFlurries to 5 apple pies. Without the apple pies, the equation doesn't work.
Yeah, the apple pie factor.
So the McFlurries inhibit aromatization, the apple pies inhibit 5-alpha reduction.
I think that the McFlurries slow your digestion down because of the dairy. And
is that really dairy in there though? I'm not sure.
Well, the machine's always broken, so I have no idea why is it that have you ever seen those memes where it's like Sonic, our shaped machine isn't broken?
Yeah.
That is the fucking best, man.
I literally went to go order a McFlurry the other night and it was broken, but it saved me. The universe saved me from myself.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to ask. When I went to bed, there is going to be a war in Texas. Does anyone know what's going on with the National Guard?
You're talking about like 3 hours ago? Don't you go
really
to bed at like 8 a.m.?
Yeah, exactly. I went to bed at 5:30. Okay, I'm doing better.
No, I
think that's Texas forgetting they're a part of the Union. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw something at the border, or the Texas border are not following the federal. Or I saw something about that on Twitter.
Yeah,
I'm so unplugged from politics. I hate.
My
politics.
understanding is the federal government insists that they remove the razor wire from the border, and Texas wants to leave the razor wire up because not to prevent the beloved migration of all of Central America.
Todd's going to get us banned with the no political talk rule.
Yeah. But this is they literally are like, we're only leaving the razor wire up where there's a river there because we don't want the illegal immigrants to drown. So Texas is literally
Todd,
leaving
you're going to get me in trouble, man.
Yeah. All right, I'll stop. You know, I see this stuff on YouTube, so I know that it's okay to talk about current events on YouTube. It's not YouTube is okay with Texas as a subject matter, but I will respect your rules about no politics.
I just don't think you can talk politics and steroids in the same conversation.
Okay.
The censor bot does not know how to handle that. Although I got copyrighted for some obscure 1970s song the only thing on with me talking.
That's
Larry Wheels copyrighted me, man. He filed a copyright strike against me because I did a commentary on his post-show rebound, where he gained like 70 pounds in a week or whatever it was.
Oh, weird. No, mine was the Autobot. It was like, it sounded like by something like Todd Johnson and the Florettes, and I was like, and I go to that segment and it's just me talking. I'm like, I wasn't even like talking harmoniously.
Yeah, I had a video hit.
I know I wasn't a hit. I'll tell you that much.
I had a video hit for the music that was playing in the background at the gym.
Oh, we did that Day in the Life with John Rivas and had a videographer there. We had the music down at the gym. We had mics and then overdubbed public domain music every time. Even most of the time when we were talking, just a little bit quieter, and it's like they're just ruthless with it, And have you tried the new thing where they let you remove the background music, but keep the good music? I let it run for like 36 hours, and it finally did it, and it still copyrighted it.
That's wild.
It has some new beta thing where it'll try to remove the copyrighted and only that sound. But it's terrible at it. B, it takes forever. And C, it apparently still copyrights you. So pissed.
That video was good though. I enjoyed that video. Justin, I watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do more because I remember I used to watch You know, the meathead, like the little Jay Cutler, you know, day in the life.
Oh, his DVD series, that was good.
I'd watch him eat rice cakes for 4 hours, just like. Just,
I don't know why it's so entertaining, but I'm the same way. Did you see Jay on Shark Tank hawking his pet peanut butter?
I just saw I saw a photo of it or something. Yeah, did they pick him up or no?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't watch the actual episode, but I saw he showed like a little teaser video on his Instagram channel.
Well, that's funny because that's really just a TV show. Because if you talk to Mark, not like I talked to Mark Cuban. Somebody talked to Mark Cuban, and he's down overall on all his total investments for that. And you know, Steve Kuklo, they got picked up for Booty Queen, and I remember because you know he told me it was several months because it happened months before they release it because they do this whole prep process where they try to beef up your manufacturing, make sure you'll be able to handle that higher inflow and everything. And I don't think they got nearly what they were hoping they would get out of it. It seems like a TV show, you know, and that's where the money's made. Right. And the kind of money those guys are offering is nothing to them. You know, when you're worth billions, like if you guys know Chamath Palihapitiya, he used to be with Facebook. He owns a venture capital firm called Social Capital. And at one point, like when the post-COVID boom and they were doling out stimulus checks, it was worth like $60 billion or something. And he said for their hard money stuff, their seed funding, you know, like if you want funding for a business, there's like seed funding, Series A, Series B. He said for seed funding less than $500,000 for a while, they wouldn't even read it. They just sent the money. Because you know, $500,000 when you're worth $60 billion is like us sending a penny. You know, he said if one in 1,000 of those, you know, 100 X's, it's you know, I make way, you know. The 500,000, you know, when we got 60 billion in investments, your account is changing, you know, tens of millions a day, you know, so 500,000 means nothing. And I just thought that was I think kind of what the Shark Tank thing is, you know, like they're throwing $60,000 at a person where that person needs that, but that means nothing to Mark Cuban. Yeah, that, you know, so, you know, he couldn't narrow his net worth down within 60,000 at any point in time ever. You know, it just varies so much. So it seems like that even if they did get picked up, it sounds like they don't really do a lot for the people for the companies they pick up.
Right.
I just ruined I'll never have a shot on Shark Tank.
Well, I think what's weird to me is that he pushed the peanut butter thing, but not Cutler cuts. Like, there's people who are making fun of me in one of my cooking videos, because I don't do them very often, where I was using scissors to cut the chicken. They're like, why don't you use a knife? I was like, because I'm using scissors. Why would you ever use a knife?
It's more efficient.
And then like they don't know about Cutler cuts. I saw Jay Cutler was selling $100 scissors to cut chicken with. And then I went to the dollar store and I bought $1 scissors to cut chicken with. And you would not believe it. The $1 scissors cut the chicken. I didn't need to pay $100 for scissors so I could cut chicken. I could just use $1 scissors to cut chicken. It's just like I never understood why women will pay $2,000 for a purse when they could go to Walmart and buy like a purse for $20.
Yeah, scissors. That design's been pretty well refined over the years.
Scissors.
The scissors pretty standardized at this point. There's not much you can do to beef it up.
Consumerism.
All right, we want to get one more question in before we wrap this fucker up.
Mm-hmm.
He swore.
I swore. I don't think they check this far in. If you've noticed, like their like I noticed like their rules say you can't say certain words in the first few minutes of the thing, and then after that they don't care. It's so weird.
I'm sorry, guys. We are lame, according to this blue Subaru. Most of us are extraneous. I'm really sorry.
Well,
I just wanted to let you guys know.
Go back and watch the original episodes where it's just me and Paul. Then that they exist.
fucking blue STI, blue STD.
Is that as like sexually transmitted infection?
Yeah,
STI is like a gonorrhea gone wrong.
That's what they call them in Australia. They don't call them STDs. They call them STIs.
They
infections.
Too. They changed it too because they didn't want people to like have the stigma of a disease.
Oh shit!
Like you're still a whore. Like what difference does it make if you got a disease or not?
Yeah, Blue STI, you're welcome to come on anytime, man, and offer your wisdom and grace to the audience. We'd love to have you.
The picture on the WRX.
Yeah,
I do appreciate the compliment, but honestly, I was going to say, Colin, that I really appreciate you being the glue that holds this show together. And I didn't say it because it was like people were talking. I didn't want to sound too.
Oh man, I hate to tell you, Todd, that's not glue. We actually have a question from a lady.
Uh-oh.
So let's end it with Amy's question. Women's health / body fat question. 11 weeks post show in body, pre-show 8.6%.
Already see the problem.
8.3%.
Yeah.
Psycho has been back for 2 months. Should I be concerned about staying this low body fat?
Well,
I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, because
the in-body
is
is
not accurate.
Yeah,
if you've got a
inaccurate.
period, that's what we care about. If you're menstruating, that's all that matters. You're healthy enough to have kids. You're healthy enough for just about anything.
Yeah, amenorrhea is the only concern. If you have amenorrhea, slowly keep pushing the food up, regaining body fat in a controlled manner. But yeah, if you've got, like Todd said, if you've got your cycle back already, you might just be one of those statistical outliers. There's few women that can stay at a low level of body fat and be healthy and take it as a blessing.
Or you're 11% or more and the in-body's wrong, which is what I think Paul was going to say. Can't trust the in-body.
Oh, I didn't see the in-body bit. Yeah, the in-body would be wrong. I just assumed like a DEXA.
The in-body is good for precision, but not accuracy. So you know that it's not going to fluctuate at random. If you were to control for your water intake, time of day, training status, it's good for tracking progress, but just understand that the actual value could be off by 5 or 10%. What we want is consistency, not accuracy with an in-body.
I have a bioelectrical impedance machine at home, and my body fat on that thing goes up as I get leaner. I don't know what the fuck.
I did one of those 2 weeks out of a show, and it said I was 17%.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, mine was in the teens.
Yeah, I wish I didn't know that information.
2 days before North American, and Justin will remember this, I was 190. And I did the in-body, and it came up 9.6% body fat, and I'm like near suicidal. And then like, what do you call it? The Rudog is his Instagram name. It's Joe Russo, who's an IFBB pro for Classic Physique. He's sitting right there, and he's like, "You still look amazing, man." Rather than saying like, "You're not 9%, man," he's just like kind of giving a pep talk. He's like, "You still look amazing." I was like, "This is fucking bullshit." And then what do we end up doing? Pulling out 15 pounds of water. So it's like, that means by pulling out 15 pounds of water, I'm up like 2%. I'm like 12% body fat. I was like so upset. And I was like, I'm never using this fucking in-body ever again. Because there's no way I've got glute cuts. And when I wake up, I'm at 12%
just be happy
body
you
fat.
don't have to bring your in-body scan to the judges when you step on stage.
They don't ask you what your body fat is. They don't ask you how much you bench. I get these guys all the time. I'm like they get all worried about their strength going down at the end of prep, and I'm like, dude, it just fucking happens, man.
Yeah, stop doing bodybuilding competition or powerlifting meet.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to make
as soon as you eat some carbs, your strength comes back within like a week or two.
Yeah, I think end of my last prep, I was down to like benching 1 plate of salad on the hammer strength incline. It was embarrassing, but yeah, it's part of the process.
All right, guys, let's wrap this mother up. Thank you, folks, for watching. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Even Blue STI. Take care.
Yeah,